Welcome back to another episode of the Coaching from My Wheelchair podcast. You're on the Go Coaching podcast. I'm your host, Coach Jay. If you've ever felt frustrated that someone just didn't seem to get what you were saying, or maybe you've realized halfway through a conversation that you were only half listening yourself, this episode is for you. Today's topic is listening with the intent to understand, a skill that can change the way you communicate, build relationships, and grow both personally and professionally. We often think of communication as just blah, blah, blah talking. But in reality, the real magic of communication lies in listening. Truly listening. I'm not just talking about waiting for your turn to speak or nodding along so you can move the conversation forward. I mean actively listening to understand the other person's perspective. In this episode, we'll explore what listening with the intent to understand really means, why it's such a crucial skill, and how developing better listening habits can improve your relationships, career, and personal growth. We'll discuss 4 types of listening, share 5 ways to become a better listener, and provide some practical tips to help make this a permanent part of your life. I'll also throw in some real-life coaching examples because we all know that learning is better when it's real, relatable, and maybe even a little funny along the way. So, grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive into it. So, let's start with the big question. What does it mean to listen with the intent to understand? Well, it's pretty simple, but not always easy to do. Listening with the intent to understand means you're not just hearing the words someone is saying. You're trying to understand what they mean and where they're coming from. It's about paying attention to not only their words, but also their tone, expressions, and body language. Here's the kicker. It's not about formulating your response while the other person is still talking. Too often, we listen just enough to respond. We're already planning our next point or comeback before the other person finishes speaking. That's what I call transactional listening. But when we listen with the intent to understand, we set aside our assumptions and really tune in to the other person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Think of it like this. When someone speaks to you, they're handing you a puzzle. Your job is not to shove the pieces into the wrong places just to finish it quickly. Your job is to look at the pieces, understand the shape, and fit them together thoughtfully. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter so much? Well, here's the deal. Communication is the foundation of all relationships, whether personal or professional, and active listening. The kind where you're focused, engaged, and genuinely interested builds trust and deepens connections. In my coaching sessions, I see this all the time. I'll give you an example. I had a client, let's call him Paul, who was struggling in his marriage. He kept telling me, I don't understand why my wife feels like I'm not supportive. I listen to everything she says. When I asked him what he did during those conversations, he admitted that while his wife was talking, he was usually thinking about how to fix her problems or how to respond. You see, Paul wasn't listening to understand. He was listening to solve. And while his intentions were good, his wife didn't feel heard or understood. Once Paul shifted his focus to listening with empathy, just being present without trying to solve, things started to improve. His wife felt heard, and their conversations became more meaningful. This is why active listening matters. It makes people feel seen, heard, and valued. And that's a game changer, whether you're trying to improve your relationships at home or build stronger professional connections at work. Okay, let's break down the 4 types of listening. Understanding these can help you identify where you might need to improve your listening habits. Appreciative listening. This is when you're listening for enjoyment. Think about when you listen to music or a good podcast. Like this one, you're relaxed and taking in what's being shared with pleasure. Comprehensive listening. Here, you're focused on understanding and absorbing information. This kind of listening is crucial when you're learning something new, like attending a seminar or a work presentation. Critical listening. This type involves evaluating what's being said and forming judgments. You might use critical listening when deciding if you agree with someone's argument or analyzing a project proposal at work. Empathic listening. This is the heart of listening with the intent to understand. It's about putting yourself in the other person's shoes and truly connecting with what they're saying, both emotionally and intellectually. The key takeaway. Most of us spend too much time in critical or comprehensive listening mode and not enough time in empathic listening mode. And that's where the magic happens. When we listen not to judge or analyze, but simply to understand. Okay, now let's talk about 5 ways to become a better listener. These tips will help you strengthen your listening skills, whether you're at work, with family, or in everyday conversations. 1. Be fully present. When someone is speaking to you, give them your full attention. Put down that iPhone. Facebook can wait a few minutes. Make eye contact and focus on their words and body language. 2. Listen without interrupting. Resist the urge to jump in or finish the other person's sentences. Interruptions send the message that what you have to say is more important than what they're saying. 3. Ask open-ended questions. Instead of assuming you know what the other person means, ask open-ended questions like, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or "How did that make you feel?" This encourages deeper conversation and shows that you care about their perspective. 4. Reflect back what you've heard. This is a simple but powerful technique. After the person speaks, summarize what you heard to make sure you understood correctly. You can say "What I'm hearing is," or "It sounds like you're saying." This not only clarifies communication, but also makes the other person feel truly heard. 5. Let go of the need to fix. Sometimes people just need to be heard. They're not looking for advice or solutions. Instead of jumping in with fixes, try saying, "That sounds really tough," or "I'm here for you." This kind of response fosters connection and trust. So, what are the benefits of becoming a better listener? Let me tell you, they're huge, both personally and professionally. Let's start with stronger relationships. When people feel heard, they feel valued. This strengthens relationships, whether with your partner, friends, family, or colleagues. Improved emotional intelligence. Active listening helps you become more attuned to the emotions of others, which enhances your ability to connect and empathize. Better problem solving. When you listen deeply, you gain insights you might have missed otherwise. This leads to more effective problem solving and decision making. Increased trust and respect. People are more likely to trust and respect you when they feel that you genuinely care about what they have to say. Personal growth. Listening with the intent to understand can help you grow as a person. It challenges you to step outside your own perspective and opens the door to new ideas and insights. Now, let's talk about what to say and what not to say during conversations. If someone is sharing something personal or difficult, avoid saying things like, "That's not a big deal. I know exactly how you feel. At least it's not worse." These kinds of responses, while often well-meaning, can dismiss or minimize the other person's experience. Instead, try saying, "That sounds really hard. I'm here for you. Can you tell me more about how that felt? I'm so glad you shared that with me." These responses show empathy and encourage the other person to open up. Here are a few practical tips to help you make active listening a permanent part of your life. 1. Practice daily. Make it a point to actively listen in at least one conversation every day. It could be with a friend, colleague, or even a stranger. 2. Journal your listening experiences. Reflect on conversations where you listened well or where you didn't. What went right? What could you improve? 3. Set listening goals. Commit to asking at least one open-ended question in every conversation. Small goals like this can help you build stronger listening habits. 4. Learn from feedback. Ask trusted friends or colleagues for feedback on your listening skills. It might be eye-opening. 5. Be kind to yourself. Remember, becoming a better listener is a journey. It's okay to slip up, just keep practicing and improving. Okay? Well, here are my final thoughts before we end here. Listening with the intent to understand is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It deepens your relationships, enhances your communication, and helps you grow as a person. Whether in your personal life or professional career, becoming a better listener opens the door to stronger connections and greater success. And that is a wrap, folks. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Coaching from My Wheelchair podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share it with someone who could benefit from better listening skills, and leave a review. If you got one thing out of this episode, just remember, listen with the intent to understand, not just to respond.
You can also buy a copy of Coach Jay's book, Coaching from My Wheelchair: Tips, Tidbits, Tools, and Strategies for Improving Your Personal and Professional Self-Development, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can also connect with him on social media, on Instagram at TWCCSLLC, and you can also find him on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and through his website at therightcoachingservices.com/podcasts.
Thanks for tuning in, and remember to stay educated, stay informed, and learn something new. Until next time, this is Coach Jay.